welcome back to the Berg Podcast. Thanks for joining us today. With me today is Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And Ford.
Hey, how's it going?
And today we're talking about the diversity of our excavating jobs. We've got clients of all sizes, scopes of work of all sizes, and yet it's all still excavation, right?
At the end of it, it's the same, right? Like an excavator is going to dig something and it's going to put stuff back. A roller is going to compact thing. A dozer is going to blade things off. A loader is going to carry. It's all the same, right? You got 10 choices of pieces of equipment, and you just all different sizes, and you just rinse and repeat. But that's on the surface. On the reality of what our teams do every day can vary so much. And as we've gotten further into this, it's not every day, right? A job, the shortest of our jobs, I guess it could still last a day, but that's very unusual. But, a short job could last a week. A long job could last a couple years. So there's less diversity day to day in that sense. But the diversity within the company has really exploded in terms of each division having both smaller and bigger jobs and doing all different things. Before we started, Ford was just talking about it, and I'm not going to steal his thunder, but the things you could end up doing, like if you're a trackhoe operator, and you just if we made a list of here's the operations that the trackhoes did this year, there'd be 100 of one thing, but there would be some outliers. You'd be like, wow, really, you did that? And that's what I think creates the spice of life with this work, is that there is delta, there is change. You're not doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, for sure. We talk about this. One of the biggest draws to our industry is that instant gratification of turning around at the end of 8, 10, 12 hours and seeing what's been done, seeing the earth has been changed, it's been disrupted, it's been shaped, it's been turned into something new. And you're right. At its base level, it's all done the exact same way, but each job is different, and each client is different, and each environment is different, and
right down to the soil conditions. Each physically, the soil that we're trying to deal with is different on each job.
Yeah. And you were talking earlier. Go ahead, Ford.
No, I was just going to say that, the interesting thing, I think, where we have some uniqueness just because we talk to other people in our industry, I would say there's 10 major sectors within excavation.
10? Is that
people? Yeah, 10.
Okay.
Do we want to list them?
Because there's heavy. I was thinking heavy civil, we're talking bulk earthwork. We got bridge type stuff. Yep. We got utilities.
Yep. Yeah.
We have residential.
Yep.
Environmental stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some, petroleum products, excavation, demolition. There's a bunch of them within that. I think I only got I got to 8.
You got to 7 or 8, but then you got Midwest Mole. So you have there's companies that do boring,
underground boring,
right? And then you have you didn't touch on
like the hydro,
right? Yeah,
hydrovac,
right. Trenchless type stuff.
Yeah.
And then you didn't touch on fields, which I think when you're talking fields, or you might be able to lump golf courses in with other stuff, but I think that sort of a sports spot is different with building fields and other things. So you're probably right. There's a significant amount of different things you could do, but really, if you boil it down to 10, it's not that many.
Yeah.
Right. But a lot of companies, they focus on one of the 10 or maybe 2. And, we've always been our fingers in a lot of those. I'm not saying we're in all 10, or we're definitely not in all 10 at the same time, but we're moving around between the different ones. And, that creates that variety and that ability. If we're thinking about at one time when there was a fire and the fire department has come out with a trackhoe and help them, demo/rip apart the fire because of trying to make sure there was no flames left. That is so using a trackhoe, still doing the same, mechanics with your arms, that's completely different. Or, there's so many of those different things that
snow could be 10.
We're always open to.
Snow excavation.
Well, it's snow. Well, yeah, we do excavate snow. I've seen this. I've used all 3 pieces. But no, that's a great example. That really is true. There's a funny, I almost think if you would have known if you were to start Berg construction in the last 10 years, right? You could have almost made your track hose all have like the autism type logo. Like, and that's probably someone's going to be upset that I said that. But you know how they have like all the pieces? It's the puzzle piece. You know, when they do that on everything, it's all different colors that it fits together. Because colors matter in our industry, right? Like if I say like the company that does bridges around here, there's a few of them and everybody can get mad. But in reality, the one that does it is red, right? Like red usually wins. You know what I mean? If you're talking like big earthwork around here, the biggest, you know, most like road work, big construction, they're either green or black. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if you're doing residential, they're green. You know what I mean? Like you can call out colors to know what people do. But Ford's right. We do a lot of different things. You know, we play in a lot of those different environments. You move a little further west, the big guys are red. You know what I mean? Like you go into Jersey, there's 2 guys that are blue. You know, like the colors, people know them because it's their calling card. Okay. You know, but with us, you would not be surprised to see orange sitting on a landfill site or a golf course or a sports field or a building pad or a septic job or knocking down a house or digging a hole so somebody could bury their horse or, you know what I mean, doing utility work on the side of the road, doing snow. You know, I mean, bridge work, that's a push. We'll get near the bridge, but we don't do bridge work.
Fire insurance companies listening, we don't do bridge work.
We don't do bridge work, right? But
we don't own any cranes or operate them.
No, we don't do any of that.
No, we don't do any blasting. No blasting.
I don't blast.
No,
blasting occurs at times.
We don't blast.
I don't blast. But I mean, yes. So there's 2 or 3 companies out there that blast themselves, right? Like, so it is an interesting point, Ford, that, you know, you probably, with Berg Construction, we probably cover, I don't know, 60, 70% of all the types of excavation you could do. Yeah. You know, and we may creep into even 70, 80.
Is that difficult? I mean, we've had this conversation before, and we've had times weaved in and out of the types of work that we do, right? At times, some of our commercial work's heavier than our special projects / residential work. And, you know, we kind of try to keep our toes in all of it at the same time, depending on, you know, who we're working for and where we're working and what's available. But is that challenging to do, or does that make it easier to fill the backlog, so to speak?
For me, and I don't, you know, Ford's not sitting here, so I don't want to cut him off. But for me, it can make it easier in that you have such a wide breadth of work you can go after, right? So the opportunities you can look at, and then you can say, okay, that may not be just something that we do every day, but we know how to do it, and we know the client, and it's where we want to work. So I got 2 of the 3, and I know what I'm doing in principle, so we're okay. So it makes it a little bit better that way. But I think it also makes it hard because there's certain things we know we don't. It's not that we don't do well. When I say we don't do well, I mean, as a business, it is not as profitable as we would like. As a rule, heavy civil is not the most profitable place to be because the buy-in cost is so high and the maintenance and the upkeep, the equipment, all that stuff. Sure. But there are spots that we know, like, hey, we don't do really good doing this in this dollar window. You know what I mean? Doing this function at 100,000 to 400,000, we don't do well. You know, but there are other things that like doing this function at 80,000 to 200,000, we knock it out of the park. You know, so it's so dependent on what we're doing. Yeah. So it's good until it's not, right? Sure. Until, like, you know, we take something and we're like, well, yeah, we can do anything, and then we get there and we're like, wow, this wasn't a good idea.
We can do it all.
We can do it all.
Just not this one.
Well, we can do it.
Yeah.
You know, like we talked about in the other podcast, we can do it.
Right. We'll do it.
We'll do it. We'll see it through. And you'll probably even be happy about it. It just wasn't healthy for us.
Right. Yeah.
So that part is hard.
Yeah.
But I think we have learned, there's some fences now, right? I would say, like, when we really got going, I really pictured that there was no fences. Like we could do whatever, anything that people would give us the opportunity to do, we could succeed at. Yeah. And now I look at it and say, like, okay, there has to be some fences because of it's just not what we do. And it's, you know, at the core of it, you know what I think the most important thing is? We have to do what we do, Ford. Like, if we don't do it, we need to be really careful, because that is a problem in excavation. In excavation, because we're touching so many things, they're like, well, maybe you could just own that. And maybe you own, I mean, you're already going to put all the stone down. Why not just own the concrete?
Yeah, right.
And you're already doing this, so why not just do the retaining wall? And you're already doing this. You've already put the topsoil down. Just own all the E&S, the seeding, the plants. You know, I mean, you already put the wires. You dug the trench. Just put the lights in. Like, and pretty soon, like, wait a minute, I'm not the GC.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's what we're not.
Right.
And I think that's where you can get into trouble. I mean, that's a podcast for a different day, but I think that's where you get into trouble is getting outside of what you do
right.
in the work, especially work that's on the periphery of what you do.
Right. Yeah.
It's also tied to the team makeup. Like when you have a subject matter expert, fancy words for saying someone that knows what they're doing, you might go after something different than you did before because you know that there's someone that has the knowledge base to take that on. Now, you have to have someone else that can estimate it too. So it's a two-piece puzzle. But at the same time, you know, that's how those fences move now. I think more than anything, like they still have, you know, those posts are, driven in by hand. They're not concreted in because if you have the right person that can manage that, then there is an opportunity in a different sector or a different thing that we might not have done in the past just because of that ability to have people that have the experience to manage something or do something different than maybe we've done in the past years before. I mean, you think about, when we started way back in the day, you know, it was always win the job, we'll figure it out as we go because I had no experience, I understand Traco digs dirt, but how do you set grades? How do you do that stuff? There was none of that, we talked about before. I've never worked for anybody else. So, I didn't have any baseline experience. It was just win the job and, it's excavation. We'll figure it out. And now we have some people on the team that have joined us that have had experience other places that they know how to do things or not do things that they shouldn't. And so that has allowed the fences to be adjusted based on the team makeup.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, like if we're talking about the good and the bad, the good is that they move, that enables you to move the fence. The bad is just because you move the fence doesn't mean you should be digging over there. You know what I mean? Like in our excavation world, was that inside the LOD? Like, good, you moved the fence. And at times we've gotten out there and they're like, yes, you are definitely safe to dig here. And we're like, well, okay, they know what they're doing. In our excavation example, right? Well, they know what they're doing. Yeah. And then you shouldn't have dug there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And you didn't really check, you relied on them. So as we grew, that became something that was really important, was not just having a subject matter expert, but also really looking into like, well, what does that mean? And taking much more calculated risks, because as we got bigger, the risk got bigger. Like the reward got a little bit bigger. It got bigger in the Amazon sense.
The reward stayed the same.
Well, but you could multiply it, right? Like in other words, in like the Amazon theory, he's only making 1 cent, but he's making it on every single dollar that's spent. So if we did more work and we could still make it at the same, at a reasonable percentage, you could be more productive. You could invest more money back into the company. You could buy more equipment. We could do all those things. But what we I think at least what I lost sight of in that growth mode was that the reward, even if all it did was stay consistent, every time we did it, the risk was exponentially greater. And so all of a sudden, a risk that was not as big became vastly greater than the possible reward. Like even if it went well, I wouldn't have really been any better off than if we had just done the thing we already knew how to do, But I think we lulled ourselves to sleep because we were very effective when we moved into bigger earthwork and landfill and even into golf courses. Like when we moved into that stuff, it translated very well. Our team was very effective. We had people who wanted to do it, who were engaged, who supported us both in the office and in the field. And it was only when all of a sudden one of those pieces was missing that we just started to do something. We're like, whoa. But by the time we realized that, that's where you are. That's the risk in doing so many things like that, is you gain a little bit of confidence that might be bravado, not confidence. It might be overconfidence.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
But if they called today, we'd go do most things. That's the reality. Like we have to be true to who we are. You know what I mean? If the right person calls, we're going to go do a golf course or a landfill. I mean, if Colt calls us and say, hey, we need you to do something, to do with supporting, Petersheim, we're going to go do it. Like, and we'll figure it out. And that's where I think the people has become so important. Everything that we, in a way, the way our business runs, for years, they didn't market, but the only thing that was ever marketed was like, people as a kid, you would have like a cat dump truck. And like when I was little, they were still metal, like a metal cat dump truck or a wheel loader or a track hoe you play with, right? Like you'd have all those things. It was the machines. But as we really grew, we realized it was the people. The machines were the tool that we bought.
Sure.
But it was the people. And I think that became the same thing as we grew. I realized that it wasn't that we could win the job. It's, do you have the people to be able to facilitate that to happen? Yes, you can get the equipment. Yes, you can get them to give you the contract. Can you physically handle that work? That's a people question, not an equipment question.
Yeah, the tools matter to an extent, but only to the extent that you've got the people to use the tools. I mean, think about the way the marketing world works. It's red tools and yellow tools and orange tools and whatever tool, So no one talks necessarily about whether or not you know how to use the tool. Just
they'll sell you the tool.
Which tool's better? Yeah,
they'll sell them to you. So I got a question for you to kind of like change it up a little bit, but let's think back of all the years we've been together. What are some of the craziest things that we each remember? Because something came to my mind that was like really goofy. It was a small job, but it was just something that was really goofy. That was like someone needed something done, and we went out and figured out how to get it done.
You go first. I have an idea, but you go first.
I was thinking about picking tires out of a pond.
I figured you would go there.
Yeah.
I feel like he's going to be at the center of it for both of us. But I do feel like, like an environmental cleanup that we did in a similar area for a similar client. We went there,
right,
and that was just, that was eye-opening in a bunch of different ways in how that went.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
How about you, Brian?
And that one felt like that was a little closer to like actually dirt work. I mean, with the suits and the, making sure everybody was safe, that was a little different. But yeah, I still remember that time we were up there at that big long reach, and we're trying to like pick tires, and we're like, hey, and then we got the boogie pickers, we called it. And we're actually like picking tires up off of the that had been left from previous people. Like those are the things you're like, how do you get here? Right? How did not like bad decisions ended here, but just like, how did we get here? Because we answered the phone. That's what we did. We answered the phone, and all right, we'll figure something out, and we got it done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple for me, and not having been inside of the, the doing of the work. So this might not be weird, or it might not, but like most recently, draining and rerouting the water at the dam project, just like getting into some of the goofiness there where we had guys like tying off to the shore so they could be cutting pipe in the water to lower the level gradually, and like all of these things, right? Like that, I was like, this is adjacent to what we do. And
so, all right. So if that's the route we're going, and not like the craziest thing I saw us do in the sense of the most eye-opening, but rather just something really one-off odd. Two things come to mind, and I feel like both of them are questionable whether I say it, but one of them is we were doing a demo job, really only because we wanted the residential project. And they said, well, can you just do the demo? And we're like, okay, fine, we'll do the demo. And we go down to do the demo, and the gas line was still attached to the house. And I remember like working through like, okay, here's how we're going to accomplish this. We can take the building down and safely work around a gas line by leaving part, and it was one of those things that reminds me of the tires. We were pushing the limits in that one of like all permits were in place. Everything was safe, but it was like, this isn't really what we're not a demo company. You know what I mean? We are. Like I've seen us do demo lots of times, but there's a big difference when you just walk in and knock down an abandoned place and when you're doing like selective demolition. Yeah. And
like we're not the guys, like the Milburn guys. We're not
Milburn or in our area, we're not Diplomat.
Yeah,
right? Like Diplomat, they would have been like, yeah, we know what to do here. Or, like, okay, we know we can't do that. For us, it was like, okay, we can do that. Like that's reasonable.
We've got the right tools to knock stuff down, but we're not really demo guys.
I mean, we can do it. You know what I mean? You call, I'll demo it.
Yeah. But we can talk about that.
But unless
we'll entertain it.
Yeah, I feel
off
like
camera.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. We don't do demo. I might change my mind. So that was probably one for me. But the tire was the one that came to mind. It was I remember explaining to the guys what we wanted them to do. And they were like, we're just going to stand there and grab tires. And we're like, yep, that's what you're going to do.
That's it. Yeah.
Years ago, before you guys were here, but the oddest one, two oddest ones, we got a call that there was a fence inside of a building, like at an airport, that they needed removed. So we sent a crew up there with cut-off saws and did that over the wintertime. And then another job is we had to go demo a dance floor at a country club. And so we had to rip the whole floor out of a country club.
Okay.
Those are definitely not related specifically to what we do or do well.
So this can be fun here. Maybe the guys will enjoy it because they'll know this job's for it. How about when we had to dig underneath of an existing operational school building, and they did not have the clearance, they said, so you couldn't use a machine. Do you remember that one? And we had to, had to hand dig the whole foundation. I think you could get a machine into, I think we hand dug it, and then there was a machine on the outside with a bucket that you would shovel it into to take it out.
Oh, yeah. They had one of those little, like powered shovels.
Yes.
A power shovel, right?
Yeah. I forget what they called it. Remember, they called that something at Longwood, and it was poorly written on a safety form. You remember? I don't remember.
We did that. Someone had dug for a footer, and then it rained in, and we had to drop down with a wall, a 55-gallon drum, and we would fill it, and then same type of thing, clean it out. And then the one that was probably the oddest, another competitor of ours, or not really competitor, but someone else in the industry, needed some help on a job, and we were slow at that point with a couple employees, and we were digging, kind of like he said for that, hand digging in a freezer in a big warehouse.
Yeah.
So,
hey,
there's been
still excavating, right?
Still excavating. Yeah, we're still digging.
That's too funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if we had thought about it, I'm sure we could think of some other interesting ones we've done. But what's the one, Ford, that if you could, like, when you picture it in your head, that's the job where you say, like, this is what we really, if we could do it, this is what I want to, this is sort of what I want to do. And so I have two that come to mind. One is just purely the equipment. One is the job we did at GLRA. Because just the way the timing of it worked and moving the soil the way we did and everything else. And we had a few really great pictures of a lot of equipment, and the guys. So it was, it's like a triangle of the equipment with the guys in front of it. It's not the job, it's that piece. But the other one is honestly one, there's two of them, but one we're doing right now. And I was at this job the other day, and you just stand back and you are amazed at the job Levi's on. Like a lot of the guys don't get down to see it. But if I sent you a picture, you'd say there's no way that's a house. And it's a house. You know what I mean? It's just everything about it is big. It's just you lose how big it is because it can't be a house. Like I know it's a house, but when I looked at it, I was like, the only way to look at it was like I was looking at an actual commercial site. And so for me, that's another one that, like, it's like a proud moment to be on. I mean, obviously the linchpin is probably for the rest of our careers going to be what we did at Longwood. You know what I mean? I mean, Longwood's just, that project is exactly what it is. You know what I mean? It's, people are going to see it for 100 years or more, unchanged.
Yeah.
Well, we don't do this anymore, but I just said, when you said something earlier, it made me laugh. There was a client back in the day that had us do hydro seeding of their property. Because after we got done, they wanted us to rake it and seed it and do the whole deal. So we rent the hydro seeder. We did the hydro seeder ourselves. It worked so well. The client was so happy that they had us come back and fix the landscaper's work because they just said the landscaper couldn't get the grass to grow the way that we did. Now, we just threw hydro seed. I mean, it's whatever, probably half probably like Miracle Grow. It was so funny because he'd come back and he's like, I need you to do this stuff in my house. We're like, that wasn't our work. He's like, no, they didn't like the landscaper and they wanted you to do it because you got the rest of the grass to grow. And I was like, so we were literally reseeding, what do they call, bluestones around this house because the client was like, yep, you got to do it because you do a good job over here. And I was like, hey, back in those days, work and hours are what mattered. So
work is work, right? Yeah.
So we've done we veered around a little bit here, but there's a lot of different aspects of what gets done. But the reality is it's all, there's a similarity, there's a common thread through all of it. And we enjoy being able to touch a lot of different things because it gives variety to the team and to the crew and to the estimating, to every piece of our company. It allows us to just to experience new things and to go do new things and then come back and try and figure out what we do well. And when I do a good job and Scott Gardner and Dylan Clements do a good job, we find jobs that are interesting for the team, that are good for us with people we know, right? That's what we talk about. Do what you know, where you know, with people you know. And when we do well, we do that. And that's the beauty of being able to touch so many things, is there's a lot of open doors. The fences are pretty far away. We got a lot of room to work in. And we just got to, find the right opportunities inside of those fences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I agree. That's probably a good place to wrap it up. Thanks for joining us today, folks. We hope you got something from this. And we hope you come back for another episode.